Uh, Very nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me here. My name is Richard Yu. I'm from the Edgeo career, and I'm based in Los Angeles. It's good to have the opportunity to present you for the first time in South Korea today. Very nice to meet you, and looking forward to great sessions with you all. So today we're going to talk about some of the latest security trend that are present in market today for some of the latest threat that typical organization has to deal with. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about some topics, mainly around QNet, botnet, as well as some of the critical 0 days event that we've seen in the markets in the recent years. And finally, we're going to kind of have a quick introduction about what Edgeo is and what we can do for your organization when it comes to protecting you against QNet, DDoS attack, botnet, as well as 0 days incidents. If you guys don't mind me walking around, kind of like to do that a little bit. So first of all, who is Edgeo? So Edgeo, we're one of the largest security platform in the world. We have more than 250 terabits per second of bandwidth capacity. And the reason why we're so distributed is so that we're getting close to every end user. We try to be within tens of milliseconds within most of the end user in major metropolitan area regions. And by being close to the end user, we also close to the attacker, so we can mitigate the attack when they started, before it reaches your infrastructure. So with Edgeo, we provide a platform that helped accelerate your web applications or your website. We also serve as a protections layers for all of your internet facing applications. So here's a bit of an overview on some of the latest security trend. So when we look at how much impact security has, in our life or in our economies, right? I was doing a bit of research, and the data came out rather shocking, right? In 2021 alone, there is about $6 trillion of damage done to the economy due to a security incident. I'm talking about 6 trillion US dollars. So this is actually very significant, and we're looking at more than $10 trillion of damage by 2025. So the security incidents, security impact is only going to further, accelerates in the next few years. We also see that there's been 1.8 billion records being breached over the past 15 years. I think that says 15 years. I don't know, but looks about right. So that's a huge portion of the world populations today. We also see that when it comes to an impact to a smaller company, or just like if you're a public company or if you're a startup, usually those companies their stock price or their valuation suffers, and we see an average of 8.6% decrease in terms of like the amount of like drops in the company valuation after a high profile security breach incident. So this is very important. Like, on a bad times, on the economy recessions, right? Like this could probably spells the end of a business. This could be an existential issues, right, for a smaller business who cannot handle this kind of security incident. Now, finally, there's an advantage, right, in acting quick when it comes to any security event. So research also found that if you're able to close any security incidents, like resolve them within the first 30 days, you can on average save your organization more than $1 million US dollars in expenses like PR, liability, legals, etc. All right, so in addition to like economical damage, right? Let's take a look a bit about the latest statistic for like DDoS. So here are some of the latest stats for the most severe DDoS attack happens in histories. If you're guessing that this happens recently, you're right. All of this DDoS attack happens within the last 2 years, right? Things don't stop just because COVID happens, especially when it comes to attack, right? So we have seen the largest DDoS attack ever to be recorded in history has grown to be 3.45 terabits per second. Now, historically, people look at its network DDoS in terms of volume, like gigabits per second, terabits per second. But it's also very important to understand that we have to look at other statistics, like million packets per second, right? This is actually a more important statistic to look at because the amount of packets a network device can pass from one source to a destination is actually the true bottleneck, not the size of the pipe. So it's also very important to look at DDoS attack, the size of them in terms of million packets per second. Now, why do I talk about DDoS? Because it goes back to the topic, the first topic I'm going to bring up today, which is QNet. QNet has been pretty famous in the news in recent years. QNet has caused a lot of damage, and despite being a rather fresh cyber crime organizations. So how did QNet get started? QNet actually got started back in 2022. It literally just started this year. It was started as a DDoS for hire service. You can actually spend $1,000 and get up to 500 gigabits per second of DDoS capacity. It actually has a huge army of botnets, right? But it started becoming involved, especially due to geopolitical situations in Russia and Ukraine. It started attacking pro Ukrainians organizations, and it became a DDoS hacktivist, right? It became a hacktivist organization that was launching DDoS or cybersecurity warfare against anybody who doesn't align with your political alignment. So I think we observed that, and again, those attacks are very high profile. It started attacking critical infrastructure services across Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Italy, and various Estonia and various Eastern European country. However, we've seen that the QNet's capability isn't just limited to Europe. It has started to expand into Asia Pacific with the first attack towards Japan government starting in September. So just keep in mind, there's a potential that this attack is going to lead to an additional country. Just last week, QNet DDoS attack actually shut down a few very critical airports in America, including Los Angeles International Airport. This is where I fly out of LAX, O'Hare International Airport, and it's Atlanta International Airport, ATL. So the attack actually brought down a few sites. Now, here's some of the very prominent news of QNet's targets. This you can find those incidents pretty widely reported on the internet. One of the more critical one. Here's a laser. Oh, there we go. That's not a laser. It's Lockheed Martin, which is obviously the world's largest military contractors. Lockheed obviously has provided a lot of military support to a country like Ukraine. Most famously, they're known for F-35 fighter, which I'm just told Korea has a few now. This is just to show that whenever QNet strikes, they always generate a lot of buzz in the media. And you don't want to be the organizations that got hit and show up in the news. So here's just some of the kind of high-level overview of QNet's DDoS methods. Of course, by the time I present this, it's probably slightly outdated because, as a good attacker, you shouldn't be using the same method over and over again. So I can't guarantee that this is still accurate. I can't guarantee that this is still fresh because they started out doing DDoS attack, like massive spikes of SYN flood, etc. But they have now further evolved into application-based attacks. So while doing DDoS attack, they also started getting into data exfiltrations and etc. So this is just a quick sample of how QNet attack the victims, and usually it comes in a few rounds through multiple different methods. All right, so let's talk a bit about best practice against DDoS. Well, first and foremost, when it comes to protecting your website or your internet application against DDoS, scale matters, right? Obviously, if you're still using a appliance-based DDoS device that sits in your data center, well, I'm sorry to tell you that you're not going to have the capacity to deal with this kind of DDoS. So you need to use an edge-based or cloud-based DDoS solutions, right? Ideally, an edge-based that's ideally as big, at least 100 terabits per second big, right? So to kind of like mitigate some of this distributed attack, because not all of the capacity is going to be centralized into a geo regions, right? So it's also important to make sure that those services are infinitely scalable. You definitely do not want to implement an appliance-based device that doesn't really scale, right? Optimally with your organizations. And finally, having the right solutions, right, and the capability is not enough. You gotta have the right run books, because I've seen so many companies utilizing the most advanced solutions. Sometimes they fail because they don't have the proper run books and a process, right, to deal with emergency scenario. So we always say, it's a combination of people, products, and process when it comes to dealing with cybersecurity incidents, right? So it's always important that your organization has a run book, has a process in dealing with like when DDoS happens, and you got to practice that, just like when we do military drill every year, right? Just to keep like your process and your people sharp. So let's move on to our next topic here. It's going to be a lightning round, like of a few like pretty like famous attack in recent years. So let's talk a bit about robots. Um, well, when it comes to bot, right? Usually everybody likes to think that, well, like most of the time robots look like that, but well, that's only in a movie, right? In real life, well, this thing doesn't quite work. Oops. In real life, most of a bot that does the attack looks like this, right? It's basically just a series of software that the attacker runs to automate certain behavior, to generate fake traffic, such as trying out thousands of combinations of username and password to attack a website, to try perform what we call a credential stuffing. So there's generally two types of bots. It's actually three types, but I'm gonna save the third types on the next slides. This is a benefit of having my kids prepare my PowerPoint slides. They get to choose the picture. So there's good bot and there's bad bot in the internet. Not all automated traffic is bad. A bit of a statistics, right? Like there's like when it comes to like the total internet traffic, there's about 42% of all the internet traffic today that's actually consists of automated traffic, or what we call bot traffic, right? Some of them you might be familiar with. Some of them are from the good organization, the good bot, like the SEO bot, the Google bot, the Bing bot, the Naver bot. I heard Naver is like one of the most popular search engine in Korea. So like most of this company runs bot, right? They have to like scrape your content. They have to like, or even your partners. Your partners might be running automated programs to access your API. So all of these automated traffics are good for your business, or the growth of your business, right? There's also bad bot, right? So one of the most popular use case for automated botnet is obviously DDoS attack, either from a network perspective. In this case, I'm more referring to an application DDoS or layer 7 DDoS attack. There's also been used for stuff like account takeover or credential stuffing. So nowadays, it's very easy to buy a list of, say, 1 million username and password in the darknet. And then once you have it, all you need to do is just run that list through an automation to brute force all of the username and password and see which one of the account that you can access to, because most people still share the same password. I mean, I'm at fault for doing that for some of my accounts from time to time. So shame on me. But there's also a lot of other different use case, right, for bots. So for example, your competitor might be running bots to scrape all of your pricings and product informations. They're going to make a copy of all of your article and repost on their website. So some of this bots is going to be bad for your business. It's going to be bad for like for your customers, like a confidentiality of your user data. And you need to have the ability to detect not just bot in general, but also have the way to actually like identify what they're doing. Are they good or bad? And allow you to make a decision on what you want to do for like the different types of automated traffic. Now, this is the third types of bot I was talking about. Um, you know, there's a good bot, there's a bad bot, there's also biological bot. Because guess what? The best robot is human. Because there's already solutions out there in the markets that is very good at detecting automated traffic. But there's also places where organization that says, well, guess what? If we can use a real bot to attack your site, we're gonna hire human bots. We're gonna go to like low cost of living countries, like this little girl who lives in a very poor country somewhere in Southeast Asia, and her full-time job is basically just sits there and click all day long for 8 hours a day, or maybe 16 hours a day, getting paid like $1 an hour, right? And when you do that, right, then the lines kind of blurs, right? When you're just doing something monotonous, you're essentially behaving like a bot, right? So you need to have solutions that's able to detect whether your request is coming from a click farm, like this one, right, or if they're actually a real user. There's multiple ways to achieve that. All right. This is just a bit of a short blurbs about how important um, thank you. How important security, like mitigating bot attack is, because like some of the primary use case for bot is actually credential stuffing, and on average, a company suffers more than $6 million of loss a year due to credential stuffing. You can see right, Chipotle Mexican Grill. This is one of the funny use case I've seen because Chipotle, I'm not sure if there's Chipotle in Korea. Like, raise your hand if there's Chipotle in Korea. Oh, there's no Chipotle. Well, it's a Mexican fast food. It's very famous, very popular in America, especially California. Um, so in Chipotle, they give free guacamole, or like basically avocado sauce. It usually costs $2 if you want to add on to your Mexican burrito. Um, However, you can open a new account, and every time you open a new account, you get a coupon for for guacamole. So what happens? Of course, the attacker would create would basically use bot to create millions of accounts to get the millions of coupon codes, so that they can share it online, and everybody has a coupon code to get their free $2 guacamole. Right. So this is obviously not something. It generates a lot of fake data. It generates a lot of unrealistic data for right. So when Chipotle say, "Hey, we have a lot of customers, creating new account," right? Well, they're not actual new customers. They're just people trying to get free guacamole. All right. So yeah, and according to FBI, right, especially if you're in the financial service space, right, about 41% of the financial sector crime involve credential stuffing, because like everyone wants to crack password for a bank account for obvious reason. All right, so how do we mitigate bot? We mitigate bots using three methods. Traditionally, or there's three primary methods of mitigating bot. There's a request fingerprinting, and there's a client fingerprinting, and then there's a behavioral fingerprinting. I'm going to quickly go over each one. It's going to get a little bit technical, right? Hope you guys don't mind. For request fingerprintings, right? What we're referring to requests as in the HTTP request coming to the server. So not just HTTP request, right? Everything that's associated to a HTTP request, like an IP, yeah, your derived geolocation, ASN, your request header, request cookie. So when you do request fingerprinting, you're basically looking at whether, when you say your Chrome, are you using the right header? Are you using the right header sequence? Are you using the right TLS, handshake, fingerprints, etc., and etc. So this is something that we can use to try to see if, say, Chrome is actually Chrome, or they're just faking to be Chrome. They're just curl using Chrome user agent, for examples. If any one of you knows how to use curl, right, you can spoof that. So it's, however, it's spoofable. Anybody who has a little bit of skill can actually mimic a real browser request signature. So that's not enough. So the second thing you need is a request client fingerprinting. So you basically try to inject a features like usually a JavaScript to detect whether a request, whether a client is who they say they are. So for examples, if you say you're Chrome, but I'm detecting that your Chrome JavaScript engine is SpiderMonkey. Then I know that you're not actually who you say you are, right? There's also other methods, right? For example, you can implement an SDK for your mobile apps that looks at user telemetry. Like if this guy, when this person browsing the phone, are they moving around? Or is this phone like constantly at a fixed 45-degree angle all day long when like this person is browsing a phone? Maybe it's shady, maybe not, right? You tapped into the API for the accelerometers to see, right, if the user telemetry lines up with who they say they are. However, this is also not enough, right? This can totally be spoofed. This can totally be spoofed by the biological bot. So this person's can totally beat requests and client fingerprinting because they're using the real client and they're using a real HTTP device, right? So it's not running a script. Like this person itself is a script. So in order to defeat that, you need the third method, which is behavioral fingerprinting, right? You look at a request journey, the customer's request user journey through your websites. So for example, let's say you have a page, you have a website, you go to home page, and then customer needs to log in to an account. So you click on the home page, you click on the login, and then you put in your username and password. Then you click enter. So you basically generate by large. I'm simplifying things a bit. You're generating 3 HTTP requests. The first one's a GET request to the home page. The second one's a GET request to the login endpoint, whatever it is. And then the third request might be a POST request with your username and password, hopefully encrypted. If you're not encrypted, we should talk. All right. So however, if you're an attacker, if you look at the new IPs from a new device, and the very first request to your website is a HTTP post to your login with a username and password, something is wrong because normal humans wouldn't be doing that. This is the type of behavioral fingerprinting we're talking about that could potentially help. So the key to success is to combine request fingerprinting, client fingerprinting, and behavioral fingerprinting. By combining all three, you should be able to effectively detect any good automations attacking your websites. And by the way, you shouldn't be blocking them because blocking them is the best way to tell the attacker, hey, we know you're hacking us, so change your method, right? So you want to do other methods. You want to slow them. You want to serve them alternative content. You want to serve them a fake page. You just want to keep telling them, hey, your username and password is correct. You send them a 200 success response when they send in the fake username and password. You do whatever to like throw them off so that at least you delay their time before they realize that they have been detected and try to change the method. And finally, obviously, like with a company like Edgeos, we provide, we use machine learning because like you can't have like behavioral fingerprinting without a little bit of machine learning. So we utilize supervised and unsupervised machine learning to help detect all of these outliers behavior to help mitigate the different bots. If you guys are interested in talk a little bit more about this, feel free to come by Edgeo booth. We're happy to talk with you. I'm told our booth is N07, so feel free to come by and we can have a conversation further. All right, so let's talk about 0 day, I think. So the reason why 0 day is important, take a look a bit about statistics. Well, the chart doesn't quite show it, but this is an exponential curve. If you notice the growth of the CVE, which is Common Vulnerability Exposure Framework, right? It's a framework that MITRE organization use to catalog and scale a new applications or any sort of internet vulnerability, right? You can see the vulnerability has grown twofold since between 2020 to 2021. Again, the exploit doesn't take a vacation just because there's COVID. However, you can see that the exploit increased in a further like accelerated pace in 2022. Like just based on the latest data I pulled from a CVE websites, we're about to hit 25,000 CVE this year, which is a growth of approximately 23 to 25% this year. So ask yourself a question. Does your security employees or your security budgets grow by exponential pace? Probably not. Maybe linear, or maybe it's not growing. How do you deal with exponential problem? How do you keep up with that? So here's just some of the very notable 0 days securities we have observed in the past just 1 year alone. So usually back in the old days, right, we only observed one critical security 0 days incidents maybe every year or like twice a year. But nowadays, like in just the past 10 months alone, we have observed 4 critical 0 days severity 0 days vulnerability. We have the Logs4j. Does everybody still remember Logs4j? Well, we got 2 guys who's working in security. um, we also have string for shell and Exchange, Microsoft Exchange. This one just happened this month. It's whoever runs Exchange probably have to deal with that. It's another like pretty critical like 0 days vulnerability. So here's the concept, right? Is that when it comes to dealing with 0 days vulnerability, the idea is speed, right? I'd like to introduce you to a concept we call it OODA: observe, orient, decide, and act. This is a concept popularized by this retired U.S. Air Force colonel. His name is John Boyd. He's the guy who helped invented F-16 fighting Falcons. So he popularized this. In order to defeat your enemy, your OODA loops needs to be smaller than your enemy. You need to go through the OODA cycle faster than the attacker. That's how you're able to keep up with the constantly like increasing like 0 days vulnerability. It starts with having the ability to gather data of all of your internet traffic in and out, or your web traffic in and out of the network. So you're able to observe any vulnerability coming in. Orient. You need to have a system that actually tells you whether this request or a threat to your organization, whether this is an exploit or not. You gotta situate yourself so that you only focus on the one that's a threat to your organization. Decide, right? Once you get all of your data and you understood all of the data, you gotta decide what action to take. So Logs4j happens. You gotta decide whether you should just upgrade your servers or whether you should update your security rule sets to mitigate those. Do you have the right to actually upgrade that? If you do, then you move on to actions. You start acting on your decisions. And guess what? You repeat that cycles when Exchange comes or when the next 0 days vulnerability come. But the idea is to have the right solutions, the right capability, as well as the right process, right? To actually help you repeat this cycle fast enough that 0 days becomes just a normal day, right? In an ideal world, 0 days is just something you wake up to. You're like, okay, fine, let's just run the process, whatever, right? Instead of usually when like Logs4j happens, I wake up, I look at my phone, I get 35 messages coming from like 6 different persons, and I'll tell myself this is going to be a long day. So how can we help? Oops. There we go. So Edgeo, as I mentioned, we're one of the largest security platforms in the world. We also have the most complete solutions. Edgeo provides the most complete applications and web security solutions that you need for any applications that's currently exposed to the internet, any HTTP applications in the internet today. And with every like security implementations and architectures, you got to start with what's important. This is like having a personal finance, right? You don't start with you don't start your personal finance planning with buying like GameStop stocks with like half of your salary. You start from the bottom. You start from foundations. You want to have the critical infrastructure protections. At a very minimum, you gotta have a robust DNS system, because it doesn't matter how good your WAF or your bot protection is. If your DNS goes down, you are, well, in English we call it SOL. Go look it up what that means. But you basically you're out of luck. So once you cover your fundamental infrastructures, right, you also want to encrypt your user data, right? You want to make sure that every request that goes through the cloud, the internet, to your applications are fully encrypted with the latest protocol, TLS 1.2, TLS 1.3. You gotta make sure that you have the strong ciphers for that. And once you have that covered, then you gotta think about hiding your infrastructure. We call it security by obscurity, right? You want to reduce the amount of surface area you have, right, facing the internet. In Agile, we provide a feature called Origin Shield. Essentially, we let you ACL only our platform to your infrastructure, so no other like clients in the public internet can access your website, right? So once you've done that, then you got enough foundational protections, right? Then you're moving into something more sophisticated. Then you gotta have a robust infrastructures, robust DDoS protection service. So obviously, I think an edge-based solutions like Agile with 250 terabits per second, we mitigate the largest DDoS attack in history, right? So having a right DDoS, and it's not just on a network layer DDoS, but also an application layer, because like anybody can actually just not launch a massive SYN flood or a UDP flood. They can just find an endpoint that hits your database, and they'll send you 100,000 requests per second, and bring down your API endpoint because they found an endpoint that constantly requires a querying of your database, for examples. And finally, once you have all of that, right, you need to have the advanced application protections, which include web application firewall, DDoS mitigations, as well as like additional advanced solutions that allow you to virtual patch yourself from 0 days vulnerability. Here's just a high-level overview of Agile security solutions. Not gonna go over every single items. It's not my intentions. This is just a shock and awe slide to show you like the confusing arrays of all of the products that we have. But the point is, right, anything you need from a network security as well as an application security perspective for your web applications, we have the solutions for you. So just remember the numbers I was talking about: 45 million RPS, 809 million MPPS, 3.45 terabits per second. Obviously, if you look at Agile's capacity, our network capacity is more than 70 times that size of the largest DDoS attack in history. Oops. Just a side note, we recently mitigated a DDoS attack towards a customer who sells computers, one of the largest computer seller who's based in Taiwan. The attack actually comes from Europe, and the attack is about 355 million packets per second. Now, how big is 355 million packets per second? That's about 40% of the largest DDoS attack that has ever happened. And the attack came from Europe, even though the customer's infrastructure is based in Taiwan. And we mitigate the entire attack using just our European infrastructure. And so we mitigate those attacks right at the source of the attack, not at the destinations of the attack, far away from our customers' infrastructure. This is the advantage of using an edge-based solutions and not an on-premise solutions. All right, I'm going to switch place now. So this is our advanced security, application security solutions. This is our WAF. We actually have a proprietary engines that we self-develop. This allows us to design how we run our layers of filters. To me, security is like a layers of onion. Every layer has its own purpose. And just like making a hamburger, you don't want to put a patty outside and put the breads in the middle. Right? How you arrange your security solutions has drastic impact to your user experience and the effectiveness of the security solutions. With our proprietary engines, we're able to create and tune a multi-layered approach to mitigate all of the attack, starting from advanced access control that lets you do blacklist and whitelist of any request parameters such as country, IP, ASN, headers. We have applications rate limiting. This allows us to perform application layer DDoS mitigations, especially towards your API endpoint or your logins or your credential endpoint. When it comes to dealing with 0 days, we provide a very powerful custom WAF rules that really allows you to create virtual patch that lets you deploy a new rules to our network within a minute to mitigate like stuff like logs4j that may not have protection out of the box right away. We have managed WAF rules or security rules. It gives us 900 out of the box rules to mitigate all kind of DDoS, all kind of application attack in the world, like cross-site scriptings, remote code executions, and etc. And finally, we have our advanced machine learning-based bot management. As I mentioned, it's important to know what the majority of your web traffic comes from. And I would say, like on average, you're gonna have a huge chunk of your traffic coming from automated attack, right? Automated client. So you need to know what they're doing, if they are good or harmful to your business. Oh, just one note about our claim to fame. This is what makes us famous. We have the only dual WAF in the industry. We let you run 2 sets of security configurations that I mentioned earlier. We let you run 2 of this concurrently for all of your security traffic. So if you need to update your WAF and you're worried about false positive, a lot of customers worry about bringing the website down, right, and pissing off the engineering team. You can implement the updates on the audit WAF and run your production traffic through the audit WAF while you're still getting protected by the production WAF with the latest rule sets. So once you're done, once you have enough data to show that you're ready to go productions, all you need to do is just promote the audit WAF to productions. And the new rules can be applied across our network within a minute. Here's a high-level overview of our bot, right? So as I mentioned, a huge portion of your traffic might be coming from automated traffic. So in this case, this is just an example for our customers. And you can see that more than 50% of your total traffic is not from actual human user. They're bot. Some of them is a good bot, right? Their search engine 14%, right? But you have like a significant portion of the traffic coming from web scraping, credential stuffing, fake account creations, etc. So we're able to detect those, categorize those, and we let you decide how you want to mitigate them. All right, this is just a 4 points differentiation with our solutions. So if you ask a question, there's so many solutions provider out there that's edge based, right? What is Edgeo advantage? Why is Edgeo better than a competitor? Again, I summarized that into 4 points: our platforms, the completeness of our solutions, our flexible service model. If you need to self-service the solutions, you can go ahead. We give you the flexibility. If you need 24/7 security operations center to augment your operations team, we provide that for you, and we provide everything in between. And finally, with the way we execute our products, just like making a good dish, right? It's not about having the ingredient. It's also about how you put those ingredients together. With the way we execute our products, we allow you to actually react fast, like as fast as possible to any 0 days attack. Like we provide API. We with everything we do, we build our solutions from ground up with API, and you always have multiple ways of trying to implement a security solutions. We have fast deployment time, so anything you do, any updates you do with our solutions can be deployed to productions in less than a minute. And finally, we provide SIEMs and SOAR integrations through real-time logs, as well as an API, 100% API coverage, as well as Terraform for our solutions. Again, like lastly, with our dual WAF, this is a killer features that would really allow you to be able to keep up with 0 days vulnerability, like that you can't really do with other providers. That's it, right on time. I got 12 seconds left, but this is the end of my presentations. Thank you all for being here and listening to me for the past 40 minutes. I really appreciate the opportunity for being here. And again, feel free to reach out to us at our booth N07 if you want to have more conversation about our solutions. I look forward to talking with you all. And I think I can open the floor up for questions. Oh, we're done with questions.
네, 강연해주신 리차드 유 보안솔루션 수석 이사님께 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 이 강연과 관련해 총 4분께서 질문을 올려주셨는데요. 첫 번째 질문부터 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 진화하는 보안 공격에 대한 기업들이 준비해야 할 가장 중요한 포인트는 무엇이라고 생각하시나요?에 대한 답변을 혹시 주실 수 있을까요? 네, 첫 번째 질문은 진화하는 보안 공격에 대한 기업들이 준비해야 할 가장 중요한 포인트는 무엇이라고 생각하시냐는 질문이었습니다.
Testing. Oh, all right, this works. Well, the most important is to not focus on a. It's excellent translations, no doubt. But the most important point is to not focus on a single point, because when you focus on a single point, it becomes a single point of failure. If you guys heard about good heart law, it means that if you only focus on one single thing, that single thing no longer becomes important. So it's always important to be holistic. Again, to refer to my pyramids earlier, like it's important to have a more holistic view on where you are in terms of the different layers of protections you have with your organizations. And we're not just talking about the solutions, but also the process. Do you have the right culture and the right knowledge base in your organizations to actually understand like what you are susceptible to? So I'll start with the culture, get an understanding of like important of security. I always say that security is not a cost center. Security should be a business enabler. Security is like having a good brakes in a fast car. It allows you to go faster. That's how security should be. And that's a culture we should build in our organization to begin with. Everything else is secondary.
네, 두 번째 질문입니다. 내부 공격에 대한 네트워크 탐지도 가능한가요? 그리고 SSL이나 암호화 통신에 대한 분석은 어떻게 가능한지 궁금합니다. 라는 질문에 대한 답변 부탁드립니다.
All right. So how do we analyze a network attack? And so there's few way, right? In general, like when requests are encrypted, that you can't really look into like what's going on in the attacks packets. But there's still things that you can see. For example, like the source and destinations of the IP. These are not something that is encrypted, right? Not while the application's data are encrypted, you can still look at the network data. There's also the frequency of the request. If, like, for example, this endpoint internally is making 10 times more traffic to an external source than the other, then without even looking into the data, right, the application data, you know that something's going on with this device. It might be infected. There's still other like places that you can see, like mostly around the behavior, like or detecting an outlier. So, like for example, the source and destination IPs, right? Like how many of the device is making above normal threshold requests to an external, or how many device is receiving more traffic from an external source, right, to internal, and like certain solutions allows you to do that without decrypting data. Obviously, you know, if you want to be extremely accurate and you want to know exactly what's going on, you still need to have a solutions that actually intercept the traffic and provide data decryptions. But at a very minimum, like you should be able to detect anomalous activity even without decrypting the data.
네, 감사합니다. 세 번째 질문입니다. Can I ask for suggestions to reduce damage from those attacks in code?
Sorry, I know it's might be a dumb answer, but work with Azure. But no, in seriousness, definitely, if you want to reduce attack in codes, you want to implement the proper. So I'm assuming you're talking about Oh, we're talking about attack in codes, or are you talking about vulnerable codes? So I'm going to answer this question in two ways because I'm not quite understanding the questions one fully. So first of all, you gotta have an applications protections. You want to make sure that you implement a web application firewall, a very advanced one with not just generic protections, but also application specific protections that has a rules that helps you detect, for example, WordPress related vulnerability exploits, right? These are going to be hitting on your codes. But if you're talking about releasing a secure codes, right, you got to implement DevSecOps. You got to make sure that you include steps like white box test or black box test into your development process using what we call a static SAS test or a DAS test. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but both ideas I suggested are good ideas to practice.
네, 감사합니다. 마지막 질문입니다. 인간 봇이 어느 정도로 위험한지 일반 봇과 비교한다면 어느 정도 성능인지 사례가 있는지 궁금합니다라고 질문해 주셨습니다.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most popular use case for human bot is guess what? Anybody use CAPTCHA? Anybody has answered CAPTCHA before? Probably most people do. Right. So these are one of the most often used case. Right. How effective a human bot? They can be pretty effective because they're just like a normal user trying to browse your website. Right. So imagine it. Instead of running a script that try username and password a million times automatically, I'm just gonna hire a few people that sits in a like different offices with different IP and let them just manually run through the list of like 100 username and password all day long. They can be pretty effective. They just do it out in a free time. Maybe they get paid like 1 cent per username and password, right? It's all about ROI. It's about having the ability to make it expensive enough so that it's too costly to run human bots to actually generate an attack. Yeah, like well, some of the most common like use cases are like click farms. If you're running a social medias, people might be hiring people to like your videos or like report your videos. There's also captcha farms, right? It's very popular. You can actually pay an organizations a few dollars to resolve like a million captcha, for example. So these are just some of the use cases.